William Shatner and I share like a visceral hatred
Of trees.
for cemeteries.
Oh, okay.
Because think about it, man. Like it's the cycle of life. Constantly, energy like just changes form, right? So you're gonna take this little temporary situation where you're this body, and then have the audacity to fucking bury that body in a plot of land that now you've rendered that plot of land useless forever. You can't use that land to feed people. You can't use that land for shelter, for any activities. And you've made that land creepy, like forever. And like they say, like an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
Right.
It makes sense because everyone's going to. Dude, cemeteries make the whole world a fucking cemetery.
Right. Well, if there's enough of it, yeah.
It's stupid. It's like it makes it creepy. It makes it useless. Whereas they have these ways of like even like taking your body and like it's like a pod where like literally like no creepy tombstone wherever you just become a tree.
Right. Yeah. Have you ever driven by, like in New York City, there are some cemeteries that you'll drive by, even in Queens and Brooklyn and stuff. And it's just like 1,000 times more graves than any cemetery that I ever saw growing up. And it's just like New York City, where like people live on top of each other. And it's like, oh yeah, you're going to have your, like the same way in New York, your apartment is going to be like 400 square feet. Oh, okay. Your fucking grave is going to be this big. And there's going to be another grave like a foot away from it. And it's like, the field that it's all in is like the biggest cemetery ever. And you're just like, just looking at that, you're like, this is completely unsustainable. Like there's way too many dead people. And it's not like they just pull out some of the graves once they're like 100 years old. Oh no, we're going to pull this one out and put another one in.
They actually do that.
I mean,
I think
do?
Like I saw a comment on the Shatner conversation where they're like, yeah, you kind of rent it for a while, and after like 60 years or so, they will just yank you out, which seems like totally disrespectful and creepy in its own right. But when you talked about the limited space, I imagined like, you know, how they do like car compactors. They'll just smash big ass cars into like little cubes.
Yeah.
Can you imagine them doing that with fucking human bodies?
Yeah. But just to make the cemetery as economical as possible.
Right. Just smashing the body into a cube. Did you give me the thumbs up that they actually do yank out the...
Oh, yeah, because I mean, once I'm gone at a certain point, yeah, like once everybody who knew me is gone. But that's why I like when they have the grave that is like, has my name, it's got my dad's name, my grandfather's name. But then like what, my kid has to go all the way to fucking New Hampshire to...
I know, but it's such a exercise in futility and stupidity, whereas like planting a tree like actually benefits the environment, right? Like they're cutting down the rainforest wholesale to make room for fucking McDonald's cows and shit. Like, I mean, maybe we could counteract them cutting down the fucking rainforest by turning every dead person into a tree.
Yeah.
That'd be sick. But dude, sorry to jump back to the content addiction thing.
No, for sure.
But think about this, dude. How much more of a fucking punishment prison has become since everybody got addicted to their cell phones? Can you imagine like being in jail always sucked. But like now being in jail when you're used to like constantly fucking having like this stimulation, this dopamine like from the phone, and now you're just sitting in a cell like you don't have shit.
But I'm gonna let you in on a dirty secret, which is a huge percentage of those dudes have phones.
Right.
Like a gigantic percentage. Like
I thought you were gonna say that the people who are in prison and like don't have phones like are way better off, and you'd probably be right.
Well, I have heard that argument of people saying that once you have a phone in prison, it fucks you up way worse, because think about just looking at people's Instagram stories. Like I could look at Instagram stories for 20 minutes right now and see hundreds of people that I know having a great time with their friends, their families. They're at concerts, they're out buying clothes, they're out cooking food, making food, like all of these great things that give your life meaning. But then, you know, I'm stuck in
Right.
this tiny little cell. Like I could imagine that making it really fucking hard. But some prisons, they're actually like giving you a tablet now to like, because think about it, if you want these guys to not kill each other and not beat
Right.
the fuck out of each other, the best thing you could do is give them a phone. I mean, it makes
Dude,
sense.
I had another guest on my podcast, just like, we didn't even say his name. It's just like death row inmate.
Oh, yeah, I
you know,
love
like
that.
I wanted to talk to a death row inmate for the longest time. We found a guy who spent, I forget what it was, but like 20 some years on death row, and got his death row status, whatever, commuted to life in prison. And then he got his life in prison, like, I don't know, like down to parole. And then he got paroled, and then he got actually out on parole. So like it was, he was just, he's a free guy.
Right.
And he explained how he murdered somebody.
Really?
Just like completely and he explained it in a fashion of like being remorseful and everything. But it was just an interesting conversation. Like we got to hear from this guy, like what's it like being on death row? Like what's it like? How does that compare to being like in normal prison? And like and all of it. And it's just like super interesting. And the amount of backlash that you know people just, man, this guy, like, we're giving this guy a platform. He killed, you know, the guy spent a long time in prison, you know. And I'm not like glorifying what he did. I was very objective. Just I was interested to you know ask questions about prison and stuff.
Right.
And the guy did say, like, he described the TV that he had in his cell on death row, and then when he went from death row to normal prison, I think he brought the same TV.
Really? 'Cause
And
it's like a little ass TV a lot
his
of times.
death row
Right?
setup was way sicker too. I seem to recall.
Really?
Bigger room, rather like, you know.
So I was on a podcast the other day, and someone, you know, it was a whole conversation about snitching, and they basically like were trying to basically prove that somebody snitched. So they called the guy that he allegedly snitched on. So they're calling him on his iPhone in prison. This guy is doing life, and we called him and we're talking to him and just listening, like having a brief conversation with someone who is presently doing life in prison was just heavy as fuck to just be speaking to him on some regular shit and just trying to think about what his life is like, you know, because it's tough to even talk to somebody who's doing a couple years in prison, never mind fucking life.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy who has no reason to have any kind of hope or faith that things are going to get better in almost any way.
Right. I mean, it didn't sound like you were talking to him on some regular shit. You were talking to him investigating whether or not he got snitched on.
Yeah, basically. But like him calling this other person a snitch and like just hearing the level of anger that he had about it and just how like fucking just annoyed he was, because it's like, oh cool, like I lost my whole fucking life. I got to sit in this box for my whole life. I need everybody to check out nojumper.com. We officially started a blog. It has in-depth articles about current events, music, etc., plus all of our content in terms of podcasts, interviews, etc. And you can get some exclusive new merch if you check out nojumper.com. So make sure you tap in.